Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a closer look at Marcus Lamb, a real pioneer, someone who genuinely changed the game in Christian media. He wasn't just, building a ministry. He was aiming for a global media presence, really merging faith with the absolute cutting edge of technology.
That's right. That's the core of it, isn't it? Marcus Lamb, born 57, passed in 2021. He had this, enormous mission he talked about, bringing the gospel into hundreds of millions of homes.
Mhm.
And when you dig into the sources, the sheer scale of that vision, especially considering where he started, it's pretty staggering.
Yeah, the documents really show that journey, taking it from like a small East Texas idea and blowing it up to broadcasting on all 7 continents. We're talking about Daystar ending up as the second largest Christian TV network in the world. That kind of jump isn't typical, especially for a faith-based group.
No, it's not. And what's so interesting is that Daystar's story, it's almost a masterclass in media strategy, not just religious broadcasting. So our mission here in this deep dive is to unpack the specific strategies he used. Some were definitely risky, even controversial. It was this mix of deep, unwavering faith, a relentless drive for operational perfection, and maybe most importantly, this knack for seeing where technology was going. That let them leapfrog competitors, both secular and religious.
Okay, let's break that down, starting right at the beginning. The roots. Marcus Darren Lamb, born in Cordell, Georgia, grew up in a Pentecostal home, and the sources paint this picture of his call to ministry as, well, not gradual at all, more like a sudden, urgent thing.
Exactly. He described it as an unmistakable call, and he was only 16. But the key thing, what really set his path, was realizing almost instantly the power of the medium itself. Television. He saw it as this incredible amplifier.
That detail feels crucial. He got it straight away. He could reach millions through broadcasting versus maybe just hundreds in a standard church setting. That kind of divine restlessness, as the sources put it just shaped everything he did next, focused him right on media.
And he jumped right in to learn. By 1980, he's only 23, and he launches his first little Christian TV station, Montgomery, Alabama. It was tiny, run on a shoestring, but it became his lab. His laboratory, as he called it. That's where he really got his hands dirty, figuring out the tech, the finances, all the tricky stuff you need to run a station, lessons that were vital later on.
But it wasn't just him, right? He wasn't doing this alone. 2 years later, 1982, he marries Joni Tremmel. How did she fit into this growing vision?
Oh, she was absolutely fundamental. The materials don't just say spouse. They call her a co-laborer, co-visionary, and eventually co-founder. Her input was huge, especially on the admin side, and really pushing for better production quality. So you had Marcus driving the big vision, the expansion, and Joni making sure the actual content and the nuts and bolts, the infrastructure, were really top quality.
Okay, so connect that to the big picture, expansion, that move in 1993, relocating the whole operation. That seems like a real turning point. What did the research say about why Dallas, Texas?
Yeah, that wasn't random at all. Dallas was picked very deliberately. It was a major media hub right in the middle of the Bible Belt, so good audience potential. But the most critical factor, its central location was perfect for the satellite distribution strategy they were already cooking up. It was purely about logistics and future reach.
And that move led straight to getting their flagship station. Daystar officially kicks off when Marcus gets KMPX Channel 29, a full-power UHF station. That deal closed, interestingly, on the very last day of 1993, December 31st. That was the moment it went from a small experiment to building a real network.
Right. And the name they chose, Daystar, that was deeply intentional, very theological. It points to Revelation 22:16, where Jesus is called the bright morning star. It clearly signals their ambition to be a global beacon, a light in darkness.
Okay, this leads us straight into the tech piece. The thing that really let Daystar just blow past everyone else. They didn't mess around with slow city-by-city growth. Marcus Lamb went big early on, investing heavily in satellite distribution. We're talking mid-90s.
That was the move, the game changer. And you have to understand, it was a massive calculated financial risk back then. Most other religious broadcasters, they were sticking to cheaper, more regional methods, maybe low power stations, local cable. Daystar just leaped over all that, used satellite tech to go from one city, Dallas, to millions of homes all across the U.S. practically overnight. It just turbocharged their growth.
Just how big a risk was that, technologically and financially, for an organization like theirs?
Oh, it was everything. Think about it. A nonprofit ministry living purely on donations. to commit to these incredibly expensive satellite leases. It was a huge gamble. If the viewers didn't show up or the donations didn't follow, I mean, the whole thing could have just collapsed under those lease payments. It really showed this combination of like radical faith, but also some seriously bold business thinking.
And he didn't stop at the U.S. border. He immediately thought bigger, aiming for every inhabited continent. The sources detail how they started leasing international satellite time, quickly pushing into Europe, Asia, Latin America.
And for Latin America, they knew they needed Spanish language programming. They got that. And Africa, too.
Africa seems like a key point in the sources.
Yeah, the impact there was apparently quite significant. The sources mentioned that many viewers in parts of Africa just didn't have easy access to structured Christian teaching. So Daystar's content filled a real need, making it uniquely important there. And to really tick the box on every continent, the documents even confirmed the signal could be picked up at research stations down in Antarctica.
Wow. But the innovation didn't just stop with getting the signal out there, did it? Marcus saw that how people watch TV was changing. Daystar kept pushing, right? They were among the first Christian networks to upgrade their whole setup for HD broadcasting.
Yes, that commitment kept them ahead of the curve. It positioned them perfectly when the digital shift really took off. They rolled out one of the first Christian TV streaming platforms, mobile apps, basically ensuring that even when people started cutting the cord, moving away from traditional TV, Daystar was already there, on their phones, on their streaming devices. He didn't let the delivery method get stale.
So let's put some numbers on that foresight. By the time he passed away in 2021, what was the actual reach of the network?
The numbers are pretty mind-blowing, honestly. Available in over 100 countries, potentially reaching more than 2 billion people worldwide. It's hard to even wrap your head around that without remembering those huge, risky satellite decisions back in the 90s and then constantly adapting to digital.
And all of that reach, that massive infrastructure, it was built on this specific, deeply held standard of excellence. This wasn't just about making good TV. It was, for him, a core belief.
Exactly. Marcus Lamb insisted that Christian content should meet or exceed the technical quality of secular programming. No blurry cameras, no bad audio. He wasn't going for that low-budget kind of amateur feel you sometimes saw. His reason was theological. Excellence glorifies God. It was about treating the message with respect by presenting it professionally, flawlessly.
And the content itself, the programming, reflected what they called the whole gospel. It wasn't just one narrow thing. Covered salvation, spiritual growth, sure, but also really practical stuff. Physical health, family issues, even financial provision.
Right. And it's important for listeners to understand how they approach that last point, the financial side. They talk about a balanced prosperity message.
Okay, so for listeners maybe not familiar with all the nuances in Christian media, what's the difference they were trying to draw between their balanced message and maybe the more criticized versions of prosperity teaching? What was the line for them?
Well, the document suggests the balance was about affirming that, yes, God desires to bless people financially, but, and this is the key, linking that blessing directly to things like stewardship, being generous, being responsible with money. They also made sure to teach about hardship, perseverance, sacrifice. It wasn't just about wealth. They distinguished it from the more extreme teachings that sometimes implied wealth was guaranteed or the only sign of strong faith. They tried to keep provision grounded in overall discipleship.
I also found the focus on unity really interesting, strategically. Daystar deliberately featured speakers from all sorts of denominations, Baptist, Pentecostal, Anglican, you name it, focusing on the core beliefs to reach, as they put it, the broader body of Christ.
Yeah, that could be a bit controversial sometimes in a world where denominations can be quite distinct. But it massively broadened their appeal. It showed they prioritized the overall mission above sticking rigidly to denominational lines.
Now, that commitment to faith, especially in funding, must have created enormous pressure. Let's talk about that unique funding model. No ads, no outside investors, just viewer donations.
Right. And that meant one thing: pledge drives. Lots of them, on air. Now, this model produced, according to the sources, remarkable stories of provision, times when money came in seemingly out of nowhere, reinforcing their faith that God would provide. But the flip side was constant criticism about how much airtime was spent asking for money. That tension is just baked into that kind of donation-only model. You can't really avoid it.
But even with all the focus on tech and money needed to run the network, Marcus always insisted it was, at its heart, a spiritual ministry first.
Yes, definitely. They made prayer and fasting a priority within the actual organization, and he himself would often have segments just praying for viewers, live on air. That spiritual core was something they consciously worked to maintain. to keep it from just becoming another media company.
That reliance on faith for funding created pressure, as you said. But that wasn't the only pressure the ministry and the family faced down the line.
No, definitely not. The personal challenges sometimes seemed even bigger than the operational ones. And the sources are clear. We need to address the crisis back in 2010.
Right. Marcus went public, acknowledging marital infidelity. This happened after some individuals apparently tried to extort him. For a network built on being open, broadcasting a confession like that, it must have been incredibly difficult.
Immense, you have to imagine. But the sources frame his response. Going public, appearing on air with Joni, showing clear repentance as a deliberate choice, turning a personal crisis into a public teachable moment. And ultimately, that transparency and the work they showed towards restoration, it became a kind of powerful testimony for viewers about forgiveness, about reconciliation.
Okay, fast forward then to 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic. That became another defining cultural moment for Daystar. They quickly ramped up content, trying to serve believers who were suddenly isolated at home.
Yes, and this brings us to a point where, as you said, we need to report impartially based on the sources. The documents note that some of Daystar's programming during that time questioned the mainstream narratives around COVID-19 itself, the vaccines, the mandates. This stance definitely put the network right at the center of broader cultural debates, especially during his last couple of years.
And sadly, Marcus himself contracted COVID-19 in the fall of 2021. He passed away on November 30th of that year.
Yeah. The transition after his death, though, really speaks to his planning, his foresight, and how the organization was structured. Because he had intentionally groomed the next generation, leadership passed very smoothly to his family. Joni Lamb took over as president. And their kids, Jonathan, Rachel, Rebecca, they were already in key roles and just continued. That preparation meant the mission could carry on without missing a beat while still adapting to new digital realities.
And the family now seems committed to upholding his standards, right? Investing in things like Christian media scholarships, keeping those international partnerships strong, and really pushing the digital side to reach younger people. The legacy seems clear. It was a life defined by mixing that radical faith, really expecting God to provide, with very practical, determined action, always chasing that high quality in broadcasting.
It really stands as an example of the idea that excellence in God's service is both possible and important.
Yeah.
And that willingness to bet big on satellite technology early on. That's the crucial historical footnote, I think.
And that tech risk, it brings us right back to where we started, that core tension. Marcus Lamb was a tech pioneer. He bet the farm on satellite, then jumped into digital early. So this leaves a key question for you, the learner, as you think about this deep dive. In a world where technology, where media habits are just constantly churning, constantly changing, how does a ministry, or really any organization with a mission it believes is unchanging, how do you maintain that non-negotiable standard of excellence when the platform itself, the way you deliver that excellence, is always shifting under your feet?
It demands constant vigilance, doesn't it? Constant innovation. And maybe the hardest part, the wisdom to know when it's time to let go of an old platform, even one that served you well, and fully embrace the new one. It's really the ultimate leadership challenge today, isn't it? Staying true to your core mission while navigating completely fluid methods.
A really profound thought there on balancing tradition and adaptation. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the complex legacy of Marcus Lamb. We'll see you next time.